yeah, studied hotel management. Did a brief stint in wine, and soon realized that if you don't own a million or few, and don't have anyone who owns a few millions, it's pointless. So I decided to rather study it and enjoy it for the rest of my life than work in the industry. So now I just show people it. But yeah, Stellenbosch is one of my favorite regions. I'll talk more about it later, but yeah.
Josh, you want to tell us what you found in your parents' basement there, in the wine cellar?
Yeah, sure. So this is also a wine from just outside of Cape Town, and it's just a little bit further inland from Stellenbosch. But it's a 1986 Muscadel, which, if you can read Afrikaans, it says full soot rooi, which means it's a full sweet red, which means it can last forever pretty much. It's full of sugar. Yeah, I've been slowly making my way through it with the smallest wine glass on the planet. Yeah, it's just, living the dream, I guess.
Josh,
Awesome.
how come you've suddenly got access to all these nice wines? I think you should share your secret.
Well, I mean, I've escaped out of Cape Town, to be quite honest with you guys. My folks stay up the coast, and just fortunate enough to dive into a couple of old bottles that I guess they've forgotten about. Yeah, super cool.
And Justin, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. Yeah, I am from a hotel background too, but I quickly jumped out of that and got into wine, as I realized that was my passion, and I've been in it over 20 years and worked in various areas of marketing, sales, and yeah, it's a wonderful, sociable industry to be in, and no better product to connect with people than this lovely stuff in my glass. So cheers. Hope you enjoy the evening, and yeah.
And Justin, Justin, in terms of Stellenbosch, I know it's quite, you've got quite fond memories for you on a number of reasons.
I actually met my wife there. Yeah, I started to work in the wine business for my first vineyard there, Saxonburg, and then in 2004, I met my Belgian wife in Dorp Street, the oldest street in Stellenbosch, which is a beautiful street, as are many in central Stellenbosch, lined with oak trees, lovely Victorian and Cape Dutch architecture. Yeah, wonderful place, full of students, and a great vibe. Probably one of the most charming towns in South Africa.
Yeah, we're gonna hear more about as we dive further into Stellenbosch today. Harry doesn't need much of an introduction if you've been with us for any of these events over the past couple of weeks, but president of the Cape Wine Academy and our New Frontiers Escapes wine master as well. So Harry, I'm gonna throw it over to you to begin this virtual tour through Stellenbosch and give us all your tips of the trade, insider secrets, everything else you can do as far as educating us about the region. So over to you, Harry.
Yeah, hi everyone, man. This is nice to see you. Nice to have some delicious wine. Okay, so let's just talk about where we're from. You know, I think when we start these sessions, and I know people have been on them for a few times, but sometimes they're new people on the Zoom. So just to put into context, South Africa as a winemaking region has been around for 360 years. So it's fairly old. It's got such a wide range of terroir. So several mountain ranges, 2 oceans. It's got different aspects, different altitudes, cool breeze influences, the oldest soils in the world. And through that, we make a whole lot of diverse styles of wine. And for those who were on last time, we spoke about Stellenbosch in terms of its historical value and its beauty and its restaurants. And we spoke about the Greater Simonsberg area, which is where the highest concentration of the most sought after wines are. And in the context that Stellenbosch is the best known wine region. Today, we're moving from that area and we're moving completely down south, all the way down to the coast, and we're moving east from that area. We would have a map, but the IT, you're sitting here with everyone, I think, in where we live, trying to use Wi-Fi, and it's just taken 3 hours. So, but we can share those with you later. The point is, where we were looking last week was Greater Simonsberg. We were really, really focusing on the Meritages or your Bordeaux blend wines. And yes, the rest of Stellenbosch is very much like that. It's still very much Bordeaux. But now you start to get your little niches. As you move away from the mountains, you get your rolling hills and you get different soils, and you get a lot of people specializing in single varieties. And then you get a lot of niche farming. So you've got quite a lot of biodynamic stuff going on, organic stuff. You get people trying different varieties. You start to see much more Chenin, start to see Pinotage. We spoke about last time, but some Pinotage. And then people are experimenting with things like Grenache and Mourvedre and Cinsault and all these different grapes. But you're starting to get, this is the area, if I was to say, if you're taking people on a trip, the big focus of wine and what most people want to see would be in last session. Now it's when you want to try and create a tour which has got niche little things in and specific things, because you can find everything now. You can find places for children, you can find new restaurants, you can find all of that. So yes, in the context that we're all speaking about Bordeaux blends, and we did Bordeaux blends last time, the wine I'm drinking is from a very, very well-known raconteur, amazing human called Ken Forrester. If you haven't heard of him, he's also known as Mr. Chenin Blanc. And Chenin Blanc is, we've taken ownership of Chenin Blanc in South Africa because we produce more of it than the rest of the world put together, although that grape does come from the Loire Valley in France. And the one I'm drinking actually happens to be, we spoke about, it's his Grenache. Sorry, let me try get this in the front.
Delicious.
He's eating Grenache, Ken Forrester. Now, Ken is a destination. Let me go through the tasting of this wine. I don't know if people know what Grenache tastes like, or if people know Grenache. Grenache is a Southern Rhone type of variety, and you'll find it in Southern Rhone, Côte du Rhône, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and on all of those sort of appellations in the Southern Rhone. It's always regarded as a lighter version of a Syrah, Shiraz. So you get your red fruit, you get some spice on it. It can be quite meaty, but it's medium bodied to lighter bodied, whereas a Shiraz is a full body. And you sometimes get, in France, they call it a Garrigue flavor. Yeah, we'll call it a Feinbos flavor, but it's a sort of, it's a herbal thing, a florally herbal thing. This one, I've had so many times, I love it. This has definitely got the red fruit. It's got, I mean, it's a bit self-fulfilling me doing this because I'm tasting and now glass. But this is a typical Grenache, nicely oaked, medium bodied. You can see it's fairly clear. It's not full bodied. Can you see that? That's a typical Grenache. And we're making good Grenache. It's a warm climate variety. That's why South Africa is so good for it. And that's why Stellenbosch is so good for it. Because, and it's drought resistant. So this wine, and I didn't even have a sip, but I'm going to now. It's delicious. And it's that red fruit coming through. I don't know if you know Cinsault. Cinsault for me is like almost a lighter version of this. But Ken Forrester, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ken Forrester before, and I think through this session we can talk about some of the experiences that we have, but I'm going to hand that over to Matt and to the guys who do the tours. Ken Forrester's been around for 30 years, and he came and he had money and he bought the farm, and he's made serious inroads in social upliftment. He's made serious inroads in storytelling and in his wines. His FMC consistently wins best Chenin in the world through blind votes. FMC, he he entered into a partnership with another legend called Martin Maynard, and it says FMC, which is Forrester Maynard Shannon, but if you ask him and if you get him to drink, he'll say it actually stands for fucking magnificent Shannon. And so he tells you these stories like that. And he's made his gate a little bit narrower so the big buses can't get in. So he really is about telling stories. And it's nice to take people there because if you can get him there around the table, you don't want to go anywhere. It's just the way he is. He's got dogs, he's got stories. He's got another wine that he calls the Dirty Little Secret. And that's what it is. It's a dirty little secret. And I believe it's Grenache as well. So I'm going to leave it at that. There's lots. So as I said now, this region is all about little niches and stuff. But I think I'm just going to hand it over to Matt to talk about in terms of a touring perspective, what's so cool about it?
Yeah, so I'm sure many of you know the region, and it's Cape Winelands, and I'm sure internationally all winelands, it's all subjective and there's no best region, but focusing on Greater Stellenbosch, and what we like to do is focus on a lot of the activities that you can do, and basically whenever the last time you were there, or if you anywhere in Stellenbosch, anywhere you look, you get mountains and beautiful views. And one of those places we like to explore is, say, Jonkershoek, which is a beautiful mountain range, goes back into the Hottentot Holland Mountains. And you got options of scootering, kind of gravity-fed, it's a Swiss design, these scooters, which is great for families. Also, romantic couples tend to make or break them. But and electric bikes, they're very on trend now. They're like the supping of cycling. So mountain biking as well, and road biking. So for active people, it's incredible. Then the art side of things, I'll let Justin handle and give you a bit more info on that. But the other thing which is beautiful to take advantage of within this area, because it is more spread out, we do need, as a planning, it is preferable to plan a little bit more than, say, an area like Franschhoek, Constantia, which I think with our team we can wing a lot more. It's safer. Whereas in the Greater Stellenbosch area, it is good to book activities first prior, and obviously the wine farms and wine tastings, especially the private ones. The fun thing we like to do within these regions, within the Greater Stellenbosch region, is sidecars. So getting to and from each farm in a unique way, because there is a bit of a distance going. So if there's budget for it, it's probably one of the better places to do sidecars or vintage car transfers, helicopter, if obviously as budget allows. But there's a lot of farms within the region. I mean, Kearmont, it's a boutique winery just above Waterford, and one of my new favorites. They've just cleared a heli space. So if there is budget for it, it is incredible. It's an easy way to travel around, and it gives you the best views of False Bay and almost all four regions. Also, Kearmont is incredible because it's one of our new favorites. You can walk back onto the other side, onto the Hottentot Hollands back going, and it's a little nature walk. So it's a little lighter for people who just want to walk off, lunch or whatever, or the previous tasting. It's not hardcore. It's 20 to 30, 40, 50 minutes, as long as you want, but it's from a private wine farm onto the back of this mountain. And there's so many of these which we have kind of in our database. The other one, which I just want to go through, I just found it going through some photos earlier, is this over here. So keeping to the theme of green, this is on one of our previous New Frontiers guests. This is at a farm called Annandale, and it's owned by a famous legend called Hempies de Toy, who used to play rugby for South Africa in the 80s. He was the previous winemaker for Alto, which is huge name, Big Reds. And so this is us going to this little farm. It's tucked away. It's big, it's bold. He barrel ferments his red wine for 8 years. I mean, it's like chewing on a leather boot. But if you like tannin, if you like big wine, he's the man. And this is him here. Let me get out the way here. Check this guy. This is Hempy, letting one of the guests try on his South African national rugby blazer, but no shoes, dogs cruising around, similar atmosphere to Marathi. But I mean, he's a winemaker. He's 5th generation. He's just strolling around the farm. He lets you have a barbecue, or we call it braai. He gives us a little bit of exclusivity. So you got, on the one hand, you got these properties like beautiful places, Waterford, Ken Forrester, and then just around the corner you got these little nooks with old world style winemaking, and just very authentic and deciphering experiences. So it's visiting these little places in these nooks and crannies in Stellenbosch region, which is limitless as well and very diverse.
The Alta wine farm you're talking about was sold to the Ernie Els wine farm this last week.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah. Ooh.
So
Ernie Els is
with
the
that,
golfer.
so Matt, with what we, I mean, where you were talking about where the mountain biking happens up in Jonkershoek and the scoot touring, I mean, the reason why it works so well is because it's almost the first stop en route. So for activities, like, so people aren't drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning.
That's true.
I mean, I think that's what makes this quite seamless. So you sort of hit this amazing mountain scenery right at the start of the area.
Absolutely. So it's always good, and I think it's one of our trademarks is getting guests to not just, I mean, if they want to, absolutely, but we've got booze on board. So if they want to get tucked into a glass of wine on the way out at 9 a.m., perfect. We find is quite nice, and it gives people a bit of it builds the day a bit better. When, I mean, Harry was talking about terroir. There's no better way of experiencing terroir and the aspect of a mountain and the height or the altitude than going down it on a mountain bike or walking, whatever your skill set is. So starting a day with an activity, and I'll hand over to Justin, maybe you can tell us a bit more about the art side of things, but starting the day with something it's a bit more physical, cultural, still wine related, everything will tie back into it. It just sets the tone for exploring the area. But yeah, Justin, I don't know, maybe you got some good ones on Dylan Lewis and some arts.
Well,
some artists.
Yes. I just, you mentioned doing some activities early in the morning to start the day, but if people aren't keen to go for a hike or cycling, what I sometimes do is I visit the town itself, which I think is a great introduction to the area. And of course, Stellenbosch remember, it's an Afrikaans-speaking town, so it's got quite a different culture from Cape Town or Constantia, for example, and you've got these magnificent buildings which really give an idea of the history that is to be found in this area. And you'll find some beautiful studios of artists in the center of Stellenbosch, and I often have a coffee with guests before going out to the winery at about 10 o'clock, and you head out along the R44 in the direction of the Helderberg, which is where Ernie Els has his winery, which is a spectacular part of the valley, which is also known as the Golden Triangle. And up there you have Haskell Vineyards. So this is probably 15 minutes from the town to the south. And it gives these magnificent views. And I find those wines very attractive, especially Rust-en-Vrede, which has some extraordinary examples of red wines produced in the area. I think the current range of wines that they have is remarkable. I think every single wine got 5 stars in the latest John Platter guide. And their Cabernet for me it's my favorite wine from Stellenbosch at the moment. And it's seamless, beautiful, elegant, and the views are magnificent. And then of course you've got Dylan Lewis en route, which is a wonderful stop, a lovely cultural stop, but at the same time it's in a magnificent part of the Helderberg, and you can go for these wonderful walks through these rolling kind of hilly garden, which has been beautifully manicured, although with a bit of touch of wildness, and you can see these enormous sculptures that he has produced, which are remarkable and beautiful. And he's probably he is the most celebrated sculptor in the country, and it's a great way to start the day. And from there, you've just got a short distance to travel do some other beautiful wineries like Idiom, which I mentioned to Harry earlier, which is further down the valley, heading into Somerset West. And this is an Italian.
I'm just going to interrupt you before you get on, Justin. I'm just going to interrupt you before you get onto Idiom.
Sure.
Just to
yes.
with Dylan Lewis, because I think it's worth exploring that a bit more. And because of the way that the garden's set up, and has anyone here who's not in South Africa been there to Dylan Lewis before? And if you raise a hand, so I can get been to his sculpture garden. Well, and I'm gonna get I'll get Tad. I'm to blame for the PowerPoint not making it to Tad. For something, we've got a big storm here at the moment, and we can't do Wi-Fi and storm at the same time. So welcome to Africa. But what's amazing with it is obviously a lot of people are either going to be on safari or go on safari. So even if you're not massively into art, it's just such a lovely way to break up the journey out to the winelands. Again, do something in the morning with his unbelievable views and his sculptures, sort of leopard, cheetah, buck, and he you know, if budget allows, we can also book him to a private tour. And he's really he's a bit like the winemakers we've been talking about. He's a very sort of loose character who really talks from the heart. So there's no sort of airs and graces. You really feel like you're sort of meeting an artist. And again, something we've got permission to do there as well is land, so you can fly helicopter wise, and that can be your first stop. So you're kind of, you know, getting straight out. So if it's a special occasion or something like that, it's such an amazing flight out, and then you land amongst the sculptures at the gardens, and carry on your day from there. And even if Dylan, you can't always guarantee he's going to be there, we do pre-book it, but the curator, the lady that runs it, has got to know us and the guides really well. So she'll give people a tour around the gardens and just explaining the stories that are going on. But I think it's something that even if you're guests, I mean, even with the children, it's such a fun place to run around. And so it's quite a nice way. You know, it's quite a nice way to start, and then you go into the town or onto another. I
was going to say, Ingram, it's perfect for children as well, because it sounds, oh, they can love it, but it's like this enchanted garden, which is amazing. And next door is one of my favorite wine farms, Friesenhof, and Friesenhof's winemaker Jan Boerland is a legend, and his daughter is one of the curators at Dylan Lewis. So we find that if we butter her up nicely, she always gives her old man a call, and we just hop over there afterwards. If we rock up on time and the kids don't dig up the lawn.
And and the other thing, I mean, Ian's there, but Waterford is just around the corner. And we spoke about Waterford a bit last time. It was a bit, it falls within this new region. But there you've got the first chocolate pairing, and you've got these guided 4x4 sort of trips into the vineyards. And you've got just a beautiful terracotta place to go with, again, amazing wines. There's no shortage of amazing wine, which is where I come in.
I think I want to go back because I cut off Justin. I love because this is sort of like one of the gems that they won't necessarily be on the itinerary, and this is kind of what the flexibility that we allow the guides, and it allows them to go with their personal relationships and their passions. So it's we won't just change the itinerary with that. It gets discussed with the. I mean, maybe Justin can. I mean, how do you do that, Justin, where you're with people and you sort of gauge an interest for someone like Idiom?
Yeah, well, it was a winery that I came into contact with about 16 years ago, and when he was just setting up the farm, Mr. Bottega and his family, and they've got a remarkable location. It's under the Hartenberg Mountains, which is the route which is visible from Sully's Pass, which takes you to Hermanus and Elgin first, which is another wine growing area, and Hermanus. But it's in Somerset West, beautiful backdrop. It's close to Waterford, which is another foreign-owned winery with a spectacular award-winning restaurant with exceptional views of the bay. And we're talking False Bay. And just a little stone's throw away, you've got Idiom. And Idiom Wines is, it's got Italian-inspired food and magnificent rolling hills, gardens, feinbos. Kids can play on the soccer field there. It's very airy, open, modern. I found the food really good. And this couple that I was wanted to see the penguins, and they were, expressing a lot of regret not having seen them. So I said, well, look, we can change the whole itinerary, and we can leave Stellenbosch immediately after our coffee, and we can head out to Idiom, which is about 30 minutes from here. And from there, we can take this extraordinary route across the other side of False Bay, heading in the direction of Betty's Bay, and go and see the penguins at Stony Point. And it was an exceptional day. And the guests just were blown away because it just all worked out perfectly, and it was spontaneous. And they were so thankful that they saw the penguins. And, I don't often make such a change to an itinerary, but this was an opportunity, and it worked beautifully, So there's a lot to do there. And you just got to know the area, know what's on offer. Spear's another wine with magnificent art on site, and if you're passionate about art, they've got loads of restaurants and stuff, although that's not the reason I go there. But for art lovers, it's a great spot, and there's wonderful local art there, and it's really supported by this Dutch family that owns Spear, and they're tremendously supportive of local arts and crafts, etc., which is all in the Helderberg, sort of lower Helderberg area.
I think Spear's worth actually mentioning because it's had a complete transformation. I mean, it definitely is a place that the big buses go. It's not necessarily on the itineraries, but there's what they've done there is quite remarkable in terms of their arts and also in terms of the local community. So there's we've got an exclusive access to what we call the dark side, so the other side of the river where Farmer Angus has all his pigs and it's all the farm to table. It was through something we did with Queer Africa. Yes. And on that side, they're not really promoting it, but they've got some beautiful stuff that goes on. So there's a lady called the Treepreneur. Yes. So she is growing, and she's got this, when you turn up at her nursery, she's growing little saplings out of old shoes, baby grows, telephones, junk basically. And she grows them to about this big, and then the saplings go, because her nursery is only so big, the saplings go out to the townships, and people then grow these trees that are then bought back by a foundation that's greening schools and the sort of and the township community. Awesome. So but that's just one of a few stories, and so it's somewhere that you wouldn't always stop at, but if you've got someone saying, I really want to, on the art front, on agriculture and on these sort of community projects, it's a wine farm that's completely Absolutely. Changed. So it was somewhere we ruled out, but it's on the map again, and they've sort of done that over the last 3 or 4 years. No, so sorry, I'm going to park because I think you're getting the picture here. This is where we're trying. This is a wine area that we use where we're looking for diversity in a trip. So where you really want to do some activity in the morning, and then the different types of wine farms, and also as a bridge to other areas. So you can do this area and then on to Franschhoek. And I want to bring it back to Harry in terms of just highlighting a couple of the farms which are our favourite in the area. And again, it's for people that are looking for just something different rather than just the history and rather good wine, people that are doing things differently. So Harry, I'm going to pass back to you in terms of a few of our favourites that we go to.
So just to say, I mean, for me, there are so many. For me, that one of the guiding decision-making aspects for choosing these farms is the relationships that we have with the people there. And we've got quite a few relationships. I know quite a lot of the winemakers. And there's one route, if you go directly east, wait, never eat silkworm Jacques, go east out from Stellenbosch. It's called the Polka Dry Road, and there's a lot of options there. You've got De Morgan's on, they play music and Baroque music to their grapes. You've got Jordan, which is a great food destination. But my place of pure love and passion is mainly because of the guy, is Reyneke Wines. And Johan Reyneke, his first love is surfing, his second love is his family, then it's philosophy, then it's wine. And but he's pioneered biodynamic wine, and we spoke about and Justin spoke about Waterford, and that's also biodynamic. But if you go there, it's an experience just to go and walk with Johan, and the way he speaks about upliftment of the environment, of his people, of the economy, all in one. And everything is about, it's actually, you go to meet the person. But when you look at his farm and you hear the stories about how, say, the average price per hectare in Stellenbosch for farming is 50,000 Rand per hectare, and he's paying 35,000 Rand because he doesn't have the pesticides, and he's got a buffer against the drought because he's got so much humus in his soil, and he's taking rubbish from other people and using it in his biodynamic recycling. And there's not one person on the planet who hasn't walked. I've never spoken to Johan or had a session with Johan and walked away not feeling inspired. So it sells itself, and I can't give it justice by just telling you it in words. Then so that whole route, sorry? Yeah.
Harry, I was just going to say, in terms of when people think like how's travel going to change, and also wine touring going to change after this, I think having sat on, so during sort of 6 o'clock in the afternoon, we can get more of the winemakers on, and so I've listened to Johan and we've spent time there. But there's a big movement in that way. But these are people that haven't just suddenly gone onto a trend, but he's almost taken the farm bankrupt as his vines went through cold turkey to get to biodynamic. And now he's producing this amazing wine, and these kind of stories, I think, with what we've all been through at the moment, are the ones that people are going to really relish. It's not going to be so much the glitz and the glam, naming no names, of certain wine farms, but it's these earthy stories of people that have really put everything into it. And I think his wine. Having listened to him the other day, because I knew his story, I've met him, but I've never spent an hour and a half on Zoom with him. And that was a decision made there and then. His wine will be on our tours after lockdown, because it's bloody good wine, but also the story behind it is got so much soul, right down to the way he treats his people. And he hasn't just done it today; he's been doing it for years. So and he's young. Relatively young, well, as young as me, or as young as Harry even.
So Ingram, that's exactly it. And we had already started. So Johan, Tyrrell Myberg from Joostenberg, Adam Mason, we've got these crazies on our tour. We have those wines, and they're called the crazies. So if we find our place, we find ourselves in a situation where it's a beautiful place to stop and have a wine, we'll bring out one of the crazies. And these have all got this kind of story, and it is definitely got to go that way. We were already moving that way, but the likes of Johan Reyneke, there's another place called Joostenberg, and Tyrrell Myberg, he's also a 7th generation Myberg family, and and we've got a good relationship with him. I've got the code to his gate. So Joostenberg's broken into the wine farm, then the bistro where everyone goes to the restaurant, and there's a whole plot of land. And he's always running in the Jonkershoek Mountains. So he gave me his code. So what you do is you take the guests there, You drive a little bit down this dirt road, and I know it's the code right now, 2202, you go in, and he's got like a corrugated iron wine room, tasting room with a gramophone. And, you know, you organize with Adam Mason, who's one of our other guys, and he just pops by, and he comes and sits with you, and then he does Tyrrell's tasting, and you're listening to gramophone music, and it's quite euphoric. I think people walk away coming out of one of those tours going, what the hell just happened? And we went to someone's house. He wasn't there. He was running. Another winemaker popped in. He did our Chenin tasting, and because he makes a lot of Chenin, and we listened to some gramophone. We think we broke the gramophone because it didn't work after we left. It's such a... And he's also, the other thing with him, he's also, all his wines are organic. They're all this way. And the social upliftment, he's got the kraal. And so that's a great place. And the nice thing about
What's
that...
the kraal?
The kraal, so I first came into contact with the kraal. It's a place where they do food. When 4 of these winemakers, Adi Badenhorst, Tyrrell Meyerberg, Sebastian Beaumont, who was on our first one, his son, his brother Lucien, and Adam Mason, decided the 4 of them. So they put 4 barrels up on the ground, and they invited 50 people. And so you walked around and you did your tasting, and then where this tasting room is, they emptied it out, and they had a whole feast. The concept of where our crazies came from. Spuchwein is Afrikaans, and I always thought it meant spit the wine. So the wine's not so delicious, but actually spuch, if you learn it properly and pronounce it properly, actually means brave wine. So it was all the experimental wines, the wines they're putting out. And so that was where the initial kraal was, and now they've revamped it and rechanged it. And you go there and you eat the organic produce off the farm. And it's not a restaurant, you book a table and you eat what they're making that day, outdoors. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
And I can carry on. There's so many amazing
yeah, well, I don't
things.
know. I don't know if anyone's got any questions, just in terms of the area or particular wine. We'll send Tad our favorite wines to share as well.
Questions, guys, just
anything,
either pipe up or put them into the chat if you're feeling shy. One of the things that you've promised us, Ingram, as well as the guides, is a secret experience or a hidden gem in Stellenbosch that you're going to share with us. And since we're a small group today, this is like really pretty good information to be able to share.
I might call on Josh. Josh, he's looking secretive already.
No, for me, if there's somebody that wants to do something that's really, away from everybody else, off the beaten track, something that nobody else is going to do, I do have a friend out in Stellenbosch who makes wine for his mum. The wines are actually pretty fantastic, and they're based around Pinot Noir. But yeah, a couple of guests, I don't know who has sent who, but I have sent or taken 1 or 2 guests to a little place called Catherine Marshall Wines. And Harry just mentioned the Polka Dry area where you can go and visit some big wineries like the Morganson and Jordan. But if you want to do something really sort of out there, if you want to get your hands nice and dirty, stick it in the barrels or, see them. Yeah, I mean, you can really get hands-on and get involved. That's kind of would be the best thing that I could probably offer you guys.
That's Catherine.
I think you're keeping some back there. Go on, Harry.
Catherine Marshall is a proper gem. She's the first garagista maker in the country. She's pioneered female making. She's pioneered Pinot Noir. She's part of Matt and I in a tasting group. She's part of that tasting group. And Josh is exactly right. She's the most giving, loving person. We've got this Vintners Classic surfers, and they've actually built her a board, and they've painted it on the art of her bottle. I wish I had a bottle with me here.
Yeah, I've seen it. Oh man, I had a bottle. I drank a bottle the other day. Obviously, being a mate, I managed to get a couple of bottles from him. So I was drinking a couple of bottles through the lockdown that have seen me through. But yeah, that's all gone now. But yeah, I mean, I think what Ingram was also referring to is some secret hikes. I do know one or two trails, particularly in the Franschhoek Valley, where nobody else can go. It's literally the back garden of another one of the winemakers that we know. Yeah, so you'll have to come this side, and then yeah, if you're lucky enough, we'll take you there as well.
I just got to show you Kathy Marshall's. This is what a surfboard looks like. They've painted it because that's the cover of her one wine. And she's got to go surf now this competition, and she's 60. And the last time she surfed, which was when she was 20. Beautiful.
Any other guys? Any other secret experiences, hidden gems you want to share? And then for those of you that are joining us, if you want to stick around with a smaller group to ask other questions, feel free. Otherwise, we'll kind of wrap it up here with the last of the insider tips.
I guess, yeah, just lastly from my side, if you are any serious art enthusiasts, there is actually one of the studios in town, in the center of town. His name is Steven Rothenbach. I think it was Justin that mentioned one of the famous artists that you can go to town.
Yeah.
And actually, yeah, just incredible wildlife mainly.
It is him. It's him. He's unbelievable. Yeah.
He works in wax, and you can obviously go into the studio, meet the artist, see whatever he's working on. It's usually some part of wildlife, whether it's a fish eagle or yeah, it's wild dogs. It's incredible.
I think what you'll notice just quickly in terms of like how these are people that cross the guy I'm talking about, like Justin and Josh and Matt. They cross their paths most days. We do training together, but they keep their secrets and this lockdown has actually helped. They keep their secrets very close to their chest because obviously they don't want lots of So there is an element of sharing that goes on, but you're obviously both going to the same artist.
Yes, we do.
But it does make the difference because you can't sort of manufacture these experiences. You've got to have it's so nice for people to have these personal relationships with the people that they're visiting, and some of those we've built up as a company, but a lot of those actually come from the guides themselves, and that's where the sort of flexibility of being able to change what's going on really works well.
There's another thing I want to mention, Ingram, is that if you're giving people like really wine aficionados, so they really want to know about the wine, and the best thing to do about this Greater Stellenbosch area is because you've got such a diverse terroir. You can go and taste a Cabernet Sauvignon on your route, and you can go do it in 3 different farms, and it will all be very good Cabernet Sauvignon, but you'll taste the influences of the land, the terroir, on these wines. And that's one of the few places where you can really do that, because it's so vast. You're either up in the mountain, or you're on this mountain, not that mountain, or you're closer to the ocean and on the rolling hills. And sometimes it's gravel, which is great for Merlot. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's granite, or it's Hutton and Clavelli, which is great for other grapes. So just from a purely wine perspective, and you can't take away all the other things that there is, but for those guys who are purely winos and want to understand what does this soil do with this wine, you can taste it as you move away from the mountain. Just saying.
One of my ones as well, though, Harry, is just going on that, is that in these areas it's quite good to, what we like to do is manage the farms as opposed to just go to each farm and do the white, rosé, red. These places you can go in and you can say, listen, we'll pay for the full tasting, but we just want your cab, or we just want your cab franc, or we just want your Sauvignon Blanc. Taste it, get atmosphere. You can squeeze these in. It is a quick stop, but it does add, if you're trying to compare, as Harry's saying, a cab sav in different regions. If you don't need to go in and do a full flight of wines. We can pop in, get the atmosphere, have a quick taste their flagship, and then move on to where the planned itinerary. And then one of my little things I was just thinking now is food, and Justin mentioned it earlier, is Rust-en-Vrede, which everyone knows is incredible wine, but they do a set menu and it's not advertised. But it's $250. It comes with it's a steak and they're red, or fish in the Shannon, and it's super
Chardonnay.
simple.
Chardonnay. Fantastic.
Well, the last time I was there, they did it with a Donkey's Bay Shannon, and it was like their Donkey's Bay is like their passion project, West Coast. But it's cool. You know, you just rock up. You can't book. You just take your chance. So it's something I like to try and do before our lunch reservation if I can. And it's bizarre and fun, and it's just simple, and it's incredible food, and you're in and out, and you feel a bit special because you made a table.
What about someone's asking there about the live, Sebastian, about the live music? I know, yeah, obviously in Stellenbosch at night, there's a lot going on, but during the day at different wine farms with the festivals and particularly on the weekends.
Well,
so
I think
Route 44 market.
Yeah, Route 44 market inside of Stellenbosch near Dorp Street. There's a market. I mean, Josh, you were mentioning earlier, but there's a lot of I think a lot of the markets. I personally would just think off the top and research which markets are on. And here we get these market halls, which Monday to Sunday there's a market, and I'm guaranteed there's live music. And Stellenbosch, Elgin, they're all quite popular for that.
But also
and Spear as well. Yeah.
In the summer season, there are like set venues. I know a Watershed played at Waterford, because I remember those two. But they've played at all of the farms. Ken Forrester, they've played at. So I reckon if you're looking for like some of our big musicians in summer, you will find one that's playing on one of the farms in this area every given weekend.
You just got to be careful, because you go around one cliff or canyon too far, you might wind up in one of our trance parties, which is quite popular out in the winery. You'll come out a different person, I reckon, or a different guest.
Also, they're looking at the local. You're definitely asking the right people about the local brewery. So where myself, Harry, Millie, and Matt all live about half a mile to I'm 200 meters from probably the best brewery in Cape Town, but it's got me hooked on craft beer, and the winelands. There's a huge amount of it. I mean, that's your zone, Matt, in terms of the craft beer. I mean,
Stellenbosch is right there.
Yeah.
Craft beer. I mean, it's not just wine. I mean, we've had guests that they've just been put into the winelands, and they're like, oh, I don't even drink wine, and then it turns into a brewery tour. We hit Finn Rains, which is an incredible international award-winning brandy. There's tequila. And then, I mean, these are alcoholic beverages. There's also, the kind of activity-based stuff. There's just so much, and that's the nice thing about these areas. We can stray off the itinerary and do these things if it allows.
Yeah, there's also some big establishments that have popped up, like the Hey Joe breweries, just before you get into Franschhoek. Franschhoek breweries. There's also the Tuk Tuk inside Franschhoek. There's obviously the little one inside Stellenbosch on the main road there. So I forget names now, but
CBC as well.
So the main one is just called Stellenbrouw, and they're just this region that we're talking about, and they make very good.
So Ingram and Millie, take note. We need to put together a "What's Your Pleasure" drinking tour for Global Base Camps.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, I mean, like so many of our clients like to do. I mean, they like wine, but they love beer. I mean, we're from San Diego, so it's like that's our thing here. And we want live music. We want to get a little buzz on and do some shopping at little local boutique shops, and it's a fun day of it. You want a little bit of everything. So
I mean, I think that's what this region is. It's better than Franschhoek for because it's you've got the university town. It's a bit more real. But I mean, I'm not doing Franschhoek. I mean, Franschhoek's amazing. I'm not doing it down. But in terms of that kind of vibe and the type of winemakers we've been talking about, they're going to enjoy that. And just on the beers again. Where because they're beers and the wine the beer makers and the winemakers seem to sort of very much be kindred spirits, but you're seeing people now brewing their beer in their favorite wine barrels to get a hint of the take. I know Matt's best friend has been doing that, and to getting big accolades for it. So it ends up being you just don't leave. Although when I visited Tad, that's all we seemed to do. I was supposed to be going to see people, but we saw more breweries than agents.
I'm sure Megs and Sebastian don't believe that, Ingram.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Right.
The Flying Lion was a favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing, guys. Is it doesn't have to be all about wine, and it ultimately comes down to the flexibility to be able to
absolutely
in the planning process, but also on the day itself. If for whatever reason your guests decide let's zig instead of zag and go to a brewery or to a distillery. I mean, those kinds of things are available for our guides to be able to jump on.
Or penguin colony.
What was that, Josh?
I just said, or a penguin colony. Justin was
or go see the penguins. Yeah.
I think with this kind of region is the route is important and the planning is important, but when you look at an overall route from A to Z, how many stops you've got on that route? You have maybe a checkpoint. You got your first taste, your first activity, a tasting, lunch, and a tasting. Within that route, always just ask us. There's so many different options, and it's quite nice to actually guide how people are feeling on the day. Depending on the route, there's so much, and I think the route is important. The planning is important, but depending on that line or loop of a route you're going, there's also alternatives. So don't, when planning trips, it's also a great idea to see option A or option B, because that's how we look at it sometimes as well.
Yeah.
I think it's quite nice having Millie here and Ant who do the planning. So unlike we're not unlike the safari rangers where they're using their radios and their Land Rovers. We're using WhatsApp on our smartphones. So and we do that on the day. So there'll be guides, trading information in terms of I've got someone they're really into grappa or whatever it might be, and then seeing if there's anything locally. But also when you're planning the trip, just so that you stand out. So if you know that you've got some hipsters that want to do X, Y, or Z, or you've got some people that are particularly interested in different activities or something, a bit, the music and that type of stuff. But that's where we can build that into an itinerary beforehand. So you've got I hate to call them set itineraries, but you've got the examples, which are quite loose, and we've done that on purpose. There's a couple of wine farms named, but it's more the region that you're going to, and that allows the guides then to change it on the day. But so that you stand out beforehand, this is where you can see the kind of knowledge and the passions everyone's got, and between them, there's 16 guides, and I think it's the eight or nine sort of like Harry's, these sort of like out and out specialists, and we all work very much together. So it's just like I've got someone they're really into this, and then fire that over, and it's really seamless. We put that in, and generally it's not costing anything extra because it fits within a tour. So if they get there and they decide they don't want to do it, we can go and do something else. So it's a really useful sales tool, having been on these chats as well, but also just knowing that you can really, particularly the winelands, the peninsula, I mean any of those areas, you can tailor it to their real passions.
So it's interesting because from like our side, this is Meg with Global Base Camps. We plan travel, so we're dealing with all the client side and planning from our end, and then we reach out to people like Shameen and Ant at New Frontiers, and they kind of help put it all, of course, together. So like when I'm dealing with my clients, a lot of times, they say that they want to see the wine country, they've heard all about the wine country, but then of course a lot of them kind of discuss we're short on time, we're gonna have to remove a day, so what are we gonna do with that day? What's our higher priority? And ultimately, at the end of the day, all they want to do is they want to, have some drinks, and they want to explore the countryside. They want to see the surrounding area, and they want to have a good time. So I always let them know, right? Of course, in advance, talk to your guide, be upfront with your guide, and tell them what your interests are that day, how you're feeling that day, because what you're feeling right now might completely change by the time that you get there. You're tired, maybe maybe you're really hungover from the night before, whatever it may be. Like it's going to be completely different potentially that day, right? So talk to your guide, be open and honest. So we always urge that of our clients, and let them know that we do offer that flexibility, right? But I feel like a lot of times also people, and I'm sure you guys see it, the guides see it firsthand, that people can be very, probably very timid, or some of them would be kind of quite timid and shy at the very beginning. Maybe they have a few drinks and they loosen up a little bit. But then at that point, it's too late into the day, and maybe there's not enough time to do all these other things that all of a sudden come to mind when the second they start to let them get to know you, or to let them get to know you, whatever. So I guess the question is is it really, really helpful if we just really kind of get as much information from them at the very beginning? You don't necessarily have a game plan.
Definitely.
You don't know how the day is going to go.
It's unbelievably helpful. I mean, Matt, you're right, because you.
Like, even if we don't know how that's going to translate, even if we don't know what you will do with that information, just to have that information.
It is massive. I think Millie and Antwoord, and even you guys, it's having the information, whether they enjoy wine or they know a lot about it or they've never had it before. It doesn't change the day that they're going to have. It just gives the guide a better, and they'll know, okay, well, this wouldn't suit you then. And or if they're very particular about their wine, not just what varietals they like, but I think what they want to learn or what they want to get out of it. I mean, some of these wineries come here, they don't even want to drink wine. They just want to touch the soil and lick the leaves.
Sure.
So from that point of view, and as what you guys were saying as well, it happens in reverse. Sometimes they hold off on the booking. You guys sell them stuff and they're like, oh, no, I don't think we would like that. Or then on the day, as you say, a couple of toots, and they're like, oh, well, my agent told me we could do this, this, and this, and it's too late. And it's like, no, it's amazing. You never know. And I think that's what's so good about the South African wine, and Stellenbosch in particular, is that you can do stuff quite last minute, and people's the way that they feel in that morning or that afternoon, especially after wine, it changes people for the better or for the worse. But it's very easy to adapt that way. And the more information you have, amazing.
Yeah, because I think there's two things that we do. So with the information that you send through, when we book it, we put it in our reservation system, but it also goes onto the guide's own calendar. And so, the guys are busy, day in, day out, but it just means that, some of these bookings we're holding on to for months. And so the guy can sit down and look on, that gets put in there, and that information properly gets digested. Obviously, it does get digested the day before, but quite often there's a lot of planning that goes on by the guides, where they've got a bit of downtime, right? Let me have a look, see what's going up, so they get to know what they're doing. The other thing that we do, and I don't think anyone else has done this before, but we took a safari lodge trainer who she did all ambience training in the day, Jessica Bender, and she put structure to the way that we run our days, because we want, and her philosophy is, we've got 5 areas of structure that we put into the guide's day that builds in the flexibility. And probably the most important one is, while everyone, like the guests are also chomping at the bit, they've been either on a long flight and this is their first day, or they've come off safari and now they want to stretch their leg to get out. And they're very keen just to jump in the van and go in the morning. But what we do is we get the map out, and we've got the itinerary that we're planning on doing on the day. And we sit in the lobby or have a coffee or wherever it is and go through that first with the map. This is what we're doing, and just get some time before we get going to find out what they want to be doing. And that's where it will come out like, I'm really hungover. I just had a big last night with my new friends on safari. Or and then and you can see the relief when you say, oh no, don't worry, we don't have to do what we were going. Let's go up Table Mountain this morning, and we'll do the winelands the next day. But that first, and we'll do that every morning, is planning the day out and getting them talking. So the number one thing that we're trying to do is make people feel like they're building their own adventure. That's where we're going to get the best feedback. So you've given them an itinerary, they've arrived with us, and then we're not trying to change it on purpose, but if we can, we're going off hooks of what they've said, if it's live music and beer, if it's particular types of wine, it's the kind of conversations that they're not having with you, or they hadn't even thought to have with you beforehand, that they're having now with the guides. And so that is when we get a winning combo. Yeah, it doesn't, we have to go, unless, we have to talk, and that's the second part of the structure, is you've got to discuss any change and then get agreement on it and then go and do it. But that's where we get the best feedback, is where people have gone, wow, we've completely changed our day. Like the Justin's example, where Josh is going off to these little quirky places, and it really, really works. And so you can, before the guests come, let them know that you must talk to your guide.
Sure.
What's great is, and if it can happen, is that I know from a booking point of view, is if the guide has the guests in, say, the Cape Peninsula on a Penguin Cape Point day, which is quite set. I mean, obviously there we have a different style of guiding, but it's quite. Then for the winelands, you have that the guide has all day to kind of suss them out, sell them on some things that maybe they weren't interested in, which they think they would love. And if we don't have that time with him the day before, or if we haven't met the guest, then as Ingram said, we try and get in touch with the guest the night before or the day before, just to see how hard they're going, and if they're going to be up at 8 to go scoot touring with us before they chuck it up, or maybe so that pre-call or that morning meeting is gold, because it's just you never know what the weather's going to do or anything.
Can I just say something concerning visiting Stellenbosch? Some guests expressed the regret that they didn't stay in the winelands, and if that's a choice or an option, I think the guests would really appreciate. The number of guests that have said to me, Franschhoek is absolutely beautiful. Had I known, I would have stayed here an extra 3 nights or for the whole duration of my stay. So if they really are wine people and they love the winelands, it's not a bad idea to introduce them to Franschhoek, for example, because there's such magnificent places to stay, and they're right in the winelands, and that's one of the most beautiful little spots in the wine area. And to get to Stellenbosch takes an hour from Cape Town, so you're saving a lot of time if you're already there. So just something to think about.
I think what's important there, then it's only half an hour back to the airport, so it's actually, you're not losing any time by booking 2 properties if you do Cape Town and the winelands, because you're going to go out there anyway, and then you're just as close to the airport to come back again. So that's quite nicely.
And you locals, would you, if you had, what's your preference? I don't know where you all live, but Stellenbosch or Franschhoek, if you had to pick one.
Franschhoek's more intimate. It's all linear, so everything's in close proximity. And people who've stayed in Stellenbosch, it's a large area, so people often they find it's just so much more enjoyable in Franschhoek because everything's nearby, and by close by I mean in walking distance. So restaurants, bars, wineries even, and there's a tram running down the valley. So you can combine it with visits to Stellenbosch, and it works out really well. So you can visit Stellenbosch from Franschhoek easily in a day, in half an hour. So that's the advantage.
One of the very popular, just quickly, one of the very popular tours is when people stay in Franschhoek, you do a loop, and we spoke about the Greater Simonsberg last time. And you come down the one road, which is Franschhoek Paarl, and you go through Stellenbosch, and you come back and you go up through into Franschhoek again. So you get to see 3 regions, don't necessarily stop at all of them. And it's a great loop because you've got the activities on there, and it's yeah, staying in Franschhoek doesn't mean you're stuck to Franschhoek wineries. You can definitely come through to Stellenbosch.
Can I just also just say something there for a second, just to obviously butt in and I guess just to kind of back up Stellenbosch at the same time, is that there are obviously firstly some incredible little boutique hotels in the town, but secondly, you mentioned like guys that are into maybe a bit more of a vibe, having some beers, something that's a bit more fun and entertaining. I would say Stellenbosch is definitely your pick then. Stellenbosch has a nightlife where Franschhoek, unless you're having fine dining,
that's true.
It's pretty late by
That's
8
true.
o'clock. Stellenbosch, there's live
Yeah, that's
bars.
true.
It's a vibe for the evening. So anyway, just saying.
But knowing your client,
Great.
knowing your client and what they're
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, like you've got like the typical honeymooners who are like, or just want to like, I don't know, be all romantic and like isolated, I guess. And then you've got other just like cool people who just want to, I don't know, be out and about and cruising around, and they're not looking to, you know, to have necessarily that typical honeymoon type of experience, I guess, you know.
I think so if it's young, Matt and the others jump in, but if it's like young honeymooners, Franschhoek is going to be your safer bet. So you can walk to everything. You've got some of the most amazing, and there's still, you've got the Tuk Tuk Brewery, the Hey Joe. There's still got a type of vibe, a bit more grown up. And so, but if it's sort of like a slack packer, you know, someone who really wants to get a bit more into the university life and hang out with Josh, then I think that you know, Stellenbosch, you know, definitely works, and not just for youthful people with like sort of you know, older people that you know appreciate finding the nooks and crannies. You get that more, and it feels a bit more real life, and but then you know, I think for that sort of ultimate romantic feel, Franschhoek would win, but Stellenbosch is a bit, I suppose it's a bit more edgy. I mean, not that it's edgy at all.
Yes, it is edgy. That's a good word.
Yeah. What's going on?
Edgy.
Rivalry coming out.
Yeah. I don't know what does edgy mean in on the other side of the Atlantic.
I'm not sure Stellenbosch qualifies as edgy when in comparison to
I said that,
San Diego or Encinitas. Yeah, but your point is well taken, Ingram.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great to hear the two perspectives, and kind of, you know, obviously there's such different clients, and you can kind of see where the different ones slide into the different towns.
I think the question really for the GBC guys is, oh man, I'm gonna blank on the name. Megs, you're gonna kill me.
Kraken?
A Kraken. Is there a Kraken in Stellenbosch?
Kraken's edgy.
Dude,
What's the dive bar scene?
I just want to dance to the Kraken. I mean, it's all I want to do right now. It's horrible.
What's the dive bar scene?
There's a place called the Akka, and then there's the Cuba bar with beach sand. So if you're looking in terms of romance, just out there. Josh had a girlfriend there, and when I first met my wife, we went there and we hired a hotel, and we ended up at a student
Justin met his wife there.
So that's the place to go if you want to party.
I stayed in one of the sort of typical 4 or 5 star boutique hotels that you might be using, and you know, I was on an educational, so I was trying to be on my best behavior, and then I went out with my wife, and some students hijacked us and said, look, you must come to this other place. We jumped in their car and we ended up in another place and then another place. We came out and had no idea how to, I mean, they were going to go on till the very early hours. We're like, let's get home. Actually, a police van gave us a lift home. So we ended up going back to this, I don't know if you use it, Scott, River Manor. We ended up going back to River Manor in the back of a police car, and I was like, don't be there. But it's kind of the fun you can get up to. That I don't think that would ever happen in Franschhoek, but it would definitely.
So what you're saying?
I'll see you in Stellenbosch then.
Yeah, what you're saying, Ingram, is you have a record.
Yeah, that's the story you told Georgie.
Yeah.
They were helping again.
Well, I guess.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for that info.
Yeah, no, well, thanks. Yeah, yeah. What time is it now? Yeah, it's 20 past midnight here, so and I've got some wine to finish.
Oh, okay.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll let it go at that. Thank you guys for staying up late on that side. This is a great session.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, Ingram,
Hey,
Harry, everyone, Tad.
Yeah.
Cheers.